G'day guys, Mike with the Outer Circle, and today's episode we have the Traitor Herald Consul. Obviously, we knew it was coming because they did the Loyalist one the week before, and, well, following the pattern of what they did with the Overseer, it makes sense that we get this now. So, what do I think of this? Well, I immediately know that there's basically going to be one divisive thing for most people about this miniature. You know it, I know it, and it's the symbol on the banner. It's an Eye of Horus icon, and there is some precedent for this in the Horus heresy of traitor units making use of Sons of Horus iconographies. They are easily recognised by their allies on the battlefield as servants of the War Master. It could have been a debased Imperial Aquila. It feels more like this is heading down the path of Chaos and Chaos Space Marines. If you look to it, there are 3 spikes on the top of the icon, there are 3 spikes underneath, and of course each end of the eye is spiked as well, and the central eye also has 8 points around it. That's 2 8-pointed stars. Those are Chaos icons right there. There could be an argument made for that, in which case one might say, why not just use a Chaos star there if you're going to go that way? Or, are you trying to broach that gap between 40k's Chaos Space Marines and 30k's Traitor Marines? Well, there's a 10,000 year time gap in between for that evolution. I don't know. I don't hate it for it. In fact, I quite like this miniature. So what I want to do is just remove the banner from the moment from the equation and talk about the rest of the miniature. Now, where I criticised the Loyalist Consul for being bad and I think looking worse and worse each time I look at it, I don't feel the same way here. I think this is a nice rendition of Mark 6. I mean Mark 4, but really I mean Mark 6 power armor. The reason why I say this is Mark 6 is if you look at the legs, yes, it has Mark 4 kneecaps, but it doesn't really. Those kneecaps are an extension of the shin, just like on other, as I said in the previous episode, there are no wolves on Fenris. This is a famous saying. There are no Mark 4 in New Heresy. It's all Mark 6 with trim and cutouts to make the knees look like Mark 4. If you look at the chest, you can see in the armpit region, the lower part of the chest, away from the breastplate, there is slots cut into it just like on the Mark 6 power armor. So I don't really look at this and think Mark 4. I think of it more like a Mark 5, like a hybrid of Mark 6 and Mark 4. It's this new style of Mark 4, which is really just Mark 6. But, I know it sounds really nitpicky, but I like it. I think it works really well here. I think the black plates on the shins overlaying the front of the greaves looks very much like the Destroyer armor, where it's like that extra hardened element on the outsides of it. That's a good look. I also think that the chainmail, that also works really well, although the chains are very clean, too symmetrical, too similar, too perfect. Again, downside of using computer sculpting techniques, you don't get that asymmetry, the variety that real chain gives you when you see it physically used on a miniature in sculpting, right? And if the shoulders had the chainmail attached to the shoulder pads, that would work really well. Unfortunately, I think the chainmail is attached to the upper arms on the miniature. That means that if you want to change it out from, say, an axe to a power fist, for example, that's going to be a bit more difficult of conversion because the chainmail is going to be in the way of where you need to attach the power fist. Not really ideal. The helmet, I think, looks really good. It's sort of a blend of Mark IV Reaver helmets that we've seen previously in the Sons of Horus. Works really well. I think the cabling is tastefully done, and I don't mind the little star turges, little hanging star-shaped glyphs, the bronze brass pieces hanging off his belt. Works for me. I don't mind the little teeth around the trim on the shoulder pads. That's fine. And I think that actually, this is a point we should get into, because what legions does this work for? And there are some that it will work really well with. In fact, they are shown below. Well, at least one of them that works really well is the World Eaters. That symbol on the backpack, I think paint it red, like the World Eaters Legion icon. is on the backpack, and that would look really good. In fact, this would even make a good Traitor Iron Halo for the World Eaters. Like, take this model, get rid of the banner hand, put the banner on someone else, and put a chain axe or meteor hammer in that right hand instead. This is basically just an instant World Eaters Praetor right there. Fantastic, right? And they don't have a Praetor or the World Eaters, so, you know, maybe this is finally the Consul you needed. Conversely, though, if you look at the right-hand side, the Thousand Suns miniature, this does not work for a Thousand Suns miniature. For a start, the helmet's wrong. He would be a Psyker and need a Psychic hood. He needs the Egyptian head crest. Like, it's okay to swap heads on promotional models, you know? And if you don't think it looks right, then don't paint that scheme on your promotional model. But the Thousand Suns with the chainmail and the hazard stripe coiling on, no, that's a hard no from me. And then converting the Eye of Horus icon into like a white Ouroboros icon of some kind does not work either on that banner. And the Emperor's Children, that does not work either. It needed to be a Phoenix weapon, like a delicate rapier would look really good on that miniature, or a Phoenix spear would look really good there. Yeah, the chainmail does not work, and of course, no offense to the person who painted it, but that is a very poor paint job to be putting on Warhammer Community. And I don't say that to insult the person, but I mean, this is A-grade marketing for the company, and that is the paint job of a person who had his first demo lesson yesterday, probably at Games Workshop. And I really want to stress that's not to insult the person, but I mean, this is meant to be high-end advertising material. Not the best paint job, you know, not the miniature I would be picking to showcase. That's all I'm saying, okay? And that's not to put the person down, although it, I know, has that effect. I apologize if it does offend them, but I wouldn't be using it. The World Eater, though, that works perfectly. So I think it works for World Eaters. Could probably stretch it to work for Night Lords. I think it would work for Iron Warriors. In fact, I think it would work quite well for Iron Hands, actually. Possibly better than that new character does for them. I also think this would work well for the Death Guard. But then we come back to the banner itself. Well, yeah. Let's see. I've got some examples for you, team. Malagos the Twisted, who is holding the Legion banner of the Sons of Horus. The banner is bigger here. I really like the little 16 icon and that on top of it, just to do something a little different. I do like this banner, though, as a Sons of Horus miniature, so I think it works there, as well as Malagos the Twisted does. That's fine. Then we get our Dark Emissary, who is functionally the same model as this guy. In fact, if you look, the left arm held down to the side, the right arm upholding the banner, both twisted, looking slightly askew to the left side of their torso. This is the same pose. It's the same model. I'll swap these two tabs over so I don't keep going between the wrongs. This is the same model. In which case, it's like, well, you could have just, you know, that right there is your Sons of Horus, you know, Herald. Or this is your Sons of Horus Dark Emissary. It's the same bloody model looking at it. A kit bash between these two would be interesting. Take the hand holding the skull from the Dark Emissary and put onto this guy would be a good look, because that hammer is just grossly oversized. And I know this without even seeing it from the correct angle, because it's so large in the angle we can see. It's already larger than the entire lower leg from blade tip to blade tip. And we're looking at this on an angled perspective. That means if we're looking at flat on from the side, that axe is probably most of his leg in size. Probably from his toe to halfway up his thigh. That's a massive power axe. Too large. And again, does not work. Like, look at it on a Thousand Suns miniature. It just does not work. And this is meant to be a generic Consul that all of the Traitor Legions can use. I think we can agree it doesn't work in that exact field. But we also have more precedent of a Legion Herald for the Sons of Horus with the Legion Command, which is temporarily out of stock, so, you know, may as well be out of stock completely. But here you can see they have the banner and this feels right. And the axe, see the proportions on that axe? Why couldn't they just do that? This, by the way, was a hand-sculpted miniature. The grips on these axes were small, thin strips of wire wound around the axe shaft to give it a grip. And you can see the little imperfections in it. You can see them in this shot even. The gaps on the grip are slightly different distances. But that's fine. Real life, things are a bit asymmetrical like that. They're not perfect. The chains dangling on the banner holding the skulls and the skulls themselves are all slightly imperfect. The chain itself is twisted multiple times as you look at it because it's made with necklace jewelry that the hand sculpted miniature, when they sculpted this, they glued it onto the banner. It's not a digital asset, and it shows because the Dark Emissary and especially this guy here, all that perfect chainmail dangling down, yeah, that's the difference between hand sculpting, right? Look at the chains dangling from the guy on the right. Yeah, you can see it, can't you, when you look at it? So much character in these old Sons of Horus consuls compared to what has come after, I think. Like, you can argue this is better scaling and it's more crisp in its details, whatever that means realistically. But there's so much just theme oozing out of these guys, like the spiky backpacks and such. And I do compare this to Sons of Horus, because this is a Sons of Horus Consul, in all but name. It's supposed to be a generic Traitor one. What we probably needed here was for the two Heralds to be one kit. One Herald Consul, and to have 18 optional banner heads in that kit. That means sculpting 18 banner heads, sure, but it only means sculpting one Consul, and it's only one SKU to keep track of, and it does the job better of, being there for multiple legions. And look at the head of this guy, this awful half Skrillex, half Jago Sevitarian look that he's got going with the stitches and stuff. Not the best bear head. And especially, could you imagine that head in the Thousand Suns or the Alpha Legion? Yeah, I couldn't imagine that. And it's very hard to make it fit those particular legions. And that is a curse of the Traitors, where their legions are very distinct. Like the big four, Emperor's Children, Death Guard, World Eaters, Thousand Suns, they're all very, very different. Thousand Suns are probably one of the most extreme examples in all of Heresy and 40k of moving away from the accepted norm. I mean, those Egyptian head crests, right? But it looks so good. But you couldn't pull this model off there. And this is a trap that many of them fall into. I don't think you could pull off the Loyalist Herald Consul for many Loyalist legions. And unlike the Loyalist Herald Consul, who just feels so bland and generic and flat and feels like a total kit bash of, you could have made it with a spare Mark III body and bits from the Mark III Command Squad upgrades, this guy at least feels more like a Herald. He looks like a veteran who's wearing his armor that, has some history to it. It's a non-standard armor. It has different trim. It's got those bits of chainmail and rivets. Like he's, added these bits to his armor over the years. That's what a Herald should feel like. And the feel of this model is right. It just feels very Sons of Horus. But like I said, turn this into a World Eater model. Cut the banner hand away. Put a Meteor Hammer or a Chain Axe or something in that hand, or, that would work so well for World Eaters. Paint the Iron Halo on the backpack red. It looks like a World Eaters Legion icon. It's just chef's kiss, right? It's all there in the offing straight off the bat. You could put this as a Night Lord. Put a glaive, one of their Night Lord's chain glaives in that hand, so he's leaning on the chain glaive as a staff instead of using the banner. Would work awesome. But that banner icon as it is, just doesn't work. And you could almost maybe just take this, cut the hand off, and take one of the plastic spare banners left over and put that on in its place. And that would probably work even better than what this does for the banner. So, yeah, I think this actually works for more legions and better than the Loyalist Herald Consul did. And I would not be surprised if this sells better. In fact, the Traitors, apart from the Traitor Legion Champion, all of the Traitor versions of Consuls are better looking than the Loyalist versions of the Consuls. They are much more thematic. They look more like actual characters than kit bashers using stock armors. The regular Legion Librarian is very boring and arguably is more Loyalist, whereas the Esoterrorist is definitely the Traitor one, and that looks better. The obviously the Loyalist Champion looks better than the Traitor Champion. The Loyalist Overseer is mediocre, looks more like a Chaplain. The Traitor Overseer looks like it could do many roles and looks really cool. This model, definitely better than the Loyalist one. We're seeing a bit of a pattern forming here, aren't we? But I like the miniature. I just don't like it for all traitors. I definitely feel it for maybe like at a push 4 Traitor Legions, like, and maybe a Loyalist Legion or 2 along the way. Because, like, I could see this working for, well, let me think, which legions would this work for? Dark Angels? Yes. Chainmail and such, the knightly aesthetic, put heraldry on this miniature, you could definitely make this work for a Dark Angel. You could make it work at a pinch for White Scars, but I mean, that's a real push to make it work for White Scars because they're more leathers and furs. Same with Space Wolves, but it could definitely be made to work for either of those legions. Definitely for Iron Warriors, put a Thunderhammer in place of the axe or something. This would be fine, and maybe change the helmet to one of the Iron Warriors Legion helmets. The chainmail and such will work perfectly for Iron Warriors. Emperor's Children, no. I think they need cloth and leather. Those more organic coverings versus like chainmail works better for Emperor's Children because it leans into more like the bits of flesh and body horror and BDSM elements. For Space Wolves, yeah, again, at a pinch, you could make it work, maybe. Maybe change it to like one of the leather gimp helmets. You could possibly keep the axe, but I'd probably like... there'd be modifications, but it could be maybe made to work for Space Wolves. I wouldn't put it for Imperial Fists, wouldn't do it for Blood Angels. I would do it pretty easily for Iron Hands. I think that would work quite well. Night Lords, yep, they could pull it off with some conversion. Ultramarines, no. World Eaters, 100% yes. Death Guard, yes. Thousand Suns, yes. No, I'm kidding. Thousand Suns is a hard no. Sons of Horus, obviously, yes. Salamanders, with a lot of conversion, I think you could pull it off as Salamanders. I think you could make this work for Word Bearers, although he looks a bit too like he means business and wants combat, which that doesn't sound like a Word Bearer. Raven Guard, no, definitely hard no. An Elf Legion, no, definitely not Elf Legion. So maybe half the Legion. I think this is definitely better than the Loyalist one, and we'll leave it at that. Anyway, you give me your opinions in the comments below. Again, I understand there's precedent for having a Sons of Horus icon on banners, but this is meant to be a Legion banner, an expression of your Legion, your guys. A Sons of Horus icon added onto an existing Legion's banner would make more sense than just carrying the Sons of Horus's banners into battle. But you let me know what you think below and what you think of the new Sons of Horus, Traitor Consul. See you all next time.